Whether you agree or disagree, or it just simply goes over your head, you can still quote me, because that's what I said.
And welcome to Native Talks. Thank you guys for tuning in. Now, if you didn't hear it from these two lips, then you've been lied to and you've been tricked. Because before you can repeat it or even start to debate it, you just better make sure that you heard me say it. All right, y'all. Today's topic is called I Was Once Politically Duped. And the reason I decided to talk about politics a little bit is because that is a hot topic today. I mean, you can't really live in this country without, you know, political views being tossed around, thrown around, and everybody's so sensitive nowadays. Used to be you could talk about politics back in the day, and even if you had different points of view, you could just agree to disagree and move on. But we're not living in that time now. Now we're living in a time where the slightest thing you say about politics will get one side or the other side all riled up. And so I'm going to talk about my feelings on politics, what I've experienced, what I've seen, and just how I respond to it all. And like I said, this is my corner of the cyber world. So it really don't matter what the rest of the world thinks about how I feel about politics. It don't matter. People can think whatever they want to. That's not going to change my experience, my beliefs, my faith, and my feelings on the matter. So with that being said, now I have told y'all time and time again, I was a child of a single parent. And my mother was very good at keeping me abreast of things that were happening. Even when I was a little kid, if I didn't thoroughly understand something and I would ask her questions about it, she was very good at answering my questions. She wasn't the kind that would just shoo me away, like, go away, kid, you bother me. She didn't do that. So, I was a very playful kid. I played outside with my friends, just doing the normal kid stuff. But every now and then, I would come inside the house and I would catch my mom, sitting and watching TV. And she would be watching something on the news. Now, I remember my attitude towards the news when I was very little was I didn't really understand, what it was. Every time my mother would be watching it and I'd be sitting on the floor watching it with her, I didn't know what I was looking at. All I saw was people sitting behind a desk saying some words. That's about as much as I could make of it. But I remember the first time that I ever paid attention, and I really paid attention because of the reaction of my mother. See, I wasn't old enough to understand what exactly was happening at that time, but my mother's reaction made me look at the TV for the first time and look at it and go, something's happening, you know. And that was when I was 6 years old. Hold on just a minute. That's when I was 6 years old, and President Richard Nixon resigned from office. I was only 6 at the time. And I remember my mom and my auntie were sitting on the couch and they were watching, this take place. And I remember sitting next to my mom on the couch. My brother was sitting, well, I think oh my goodness, he was about 3 years old. So he was like sitting on the floor, but he was playing with something I can't even remember. But I remember sitting next to my mom on the couch, and I remember looking at this white man sitting with this huge thing behind him, which was the emblem of the American, our government sign back there, big oval thing behind him. And I remember seeing him sitting there and he was spouting off a bunch of stuff. I didn't know what he was saying. I didn't know what was taking place, but my mother kept saying stuff like, it's about time. It's about time. You really think you was going to get away with that? It's about time. And so I was trying to figure out, because my mom and my auntie, they were just shouting stuff at the TV, and, they had these looks of, they were evidently happy that whatever was taking place was happening, because they kept affirming that that's what he should do, that's what he should have done. And I remember when it went off, I asked my mom who was that and what was wrong. My mother, the only thing she told me, because she knew I wouldn't be able to understand everything, she said that was our president and that he did something bad, and now he's no longer going to be our president. Now, you got to think like a little kid to kind of get where my mindset was. When she said he did something bad, I'm thinking, well, he must have did something, that adults do when they do something bad. And the only thing that I knew that adults did when they did something bad was kill somebody or steal from somebody or pull a gun out on somebody, because that's the kind of stuff I saw in the neighborhood where I was living. And adults were doing that at that time. So that's how my mind thought. So I'm thinking, well, maybe he killed someone, maybe he robbed somebody, but mommy said he did something bad. But that was the first time I actually sat down long enough to actually look at the TV and try to figure out what was going on. And by my mother's reaction, I knew something was happening. But again, I was only 6. By the time my mama explained it and I took what I could from it, I was back in kid mode at that moment. I just wanted to go out and play and never thought about it. Of course, years later, I realized what had taken place and what he had done, but that happened years later. Being a typical kid, that's why I can't get mad at kids nowadays when they don't know about certain things, as far as the news and stuff like that, because when you're a kid, honestly, you shouldn't have to think about those things. That's a world that you are not old enough to dive into anyway. Your opinion about it doesn't matter anyway. You're just a child. So to be concerned with things of the political world, you don't need to be concerned with that. Your parents are supposed to be the ones that speak for you in that aspect, because you live under their roof and they take care of you. They speak on your behalf till you are old enough to find out the facts for yourself and make your own decision. Now, as I grew older, I found myself not looking at the news as something that was over my head. By the time I was about, I'll probably say 12, I didn't mind watching the news. Still, a lot of stuff, didn't make sense to me, but I was able to hear what, was going on. And I was able to take what they gave me and try to piece and put together what I thought happened. And then if something still wasn't making sense, I still had my mother there to say, Mama, what they talking about? What are they saying? And then my mom would give me more information because she knew I was 12 and I knew, more about what was going on. I think one of the first things that I paid attention to, and I mean literally began to really start watching the news, not just sitting there and tolerating it like I had been, because that's what my mama watched. And my mama was the type that if she's watching something, you don't touch the channel, you don't turn it. So up until I was old enough to really start paying attention, the news was something that I just tolerated. I just basically sat there until it was off so that I could watch what I wanted to watch. That's usually how it went. So that the first time that I really remember paying attention was when Jimmy Carter became president. And the reason why is because my mother and My auntie, they were always talking about Jimmy Carter, him being a Christian. He was like the first Christian to ever run for president. And when he was getting close to winning, Christians all over the world were severely happy about that. My mother was making it clear that, he was a Christian and that he loved the Lord, and, he went to church like we went to church. And, she was just, to have somebody in office that loves the Lord and serves him. My mom voted for him. My aunts, uncles, practically all of my relatives voted for him. Why? He was a Democrat. And my mom was a Democrat. Everyone in my family, we're just Democratic people. That's what we are. So when he became president, I actually watched him. I didn't watch him like just all into it, but that was the first time that I really paid attention to what a presidential leader did. Every time he had an address, I found myself sitting in front of TV and watching it. Anytime he had something to say, I found myself tuning in and listening. Now, a lot of people didn't like Jimmy Carter. And I'm not going to say that, because again, I was a kid during that time. So as far as certain policies and things that he did, that people didn't agree with, I don't really know about, because I didn't really, I was a kid at that time. But I do know that a lot of people didn't like him because he was Christian. You got to remember, he became president at a very tumultuous time for Christians. And what I mean by that is, Roe versus Wade happened shortly before he became president. Prayer was taken out of the schools before he became president. There was a shifting in the tide. Christians had a lot of foothold in this country, and we started losing our footing right about that time. The world was tired of Christians, shall we say, and started removing God out of everything. And him becoming president in the midst of that was something that we didn't think was possible. That's what my mother said. She said, we didn't think that he would be able to win that when the world was so busy trying to tear Christians down. So when he became president, a lot of people who were atheists and agnostics and people that just did not believe in God at all, they were not happy with Jimmy Carter. And so my mom told me they began to attack him. And I remember, a few times hearing commentators on the news say things about him that just wasn't very nice. Of course, he did not win a second term. He was only in there for one term. But what I find funny about Jimmy Carter is that for somebody that was supposedly such a terrible president and someone who they felt should have never gotten that position, he literally was a peacemaker after his term as president. A lot of people depended on him to go and speak to foreign dignitaries who did not get along with America. They used him to do it because he was a nice guy. And he may not have always, like I said, because I wasn't old enough to understand things that he may have done in his political career. I do know that despite what he did, people trusted him enough to allow him to represent America to go and talk with people who didn't quite get along with us. And he was able to smooth things over and cool things down. And so when you got somebody who you think wasn't fit for the job, but after that job, you depended on them to fight battles for you, that says a lot. That says that maybe you wasn't so right about the person you said was so wrong for the position, if you get what I'm saying. So Jimmy Carter's presidency kind of opened the floodgates. And I found myself watching the news more. One of the other things that happened when I started paying attention was I started paying attention to the Muslim community. And the reason why, number one, my mom had been going back to school, and she had uh, foreign friends. She had made a lot of foreign friends at the college that she was attending, and a lot of them would come over to our house. And there were quite a few Iranian men that she had made friends with, and they had come over to the house and they would tell us about their culture. I remember hearing, stories about what it was like in their country and everything. And so that kind of opened the window to every time the news said something about Muslims, I would pay attention. Now, this is where I say that I can thoroughly understand why kids nowadays can be easily indoctrinated into thinking a certain way about something without all the facts. Because I was a kid myself, and I had met Iranians and Iraqis that were very nice Muslims. They treated us very nice. They were very respectful to my mom, very respectful to me and my brother, never harmed us in any way, shape, or form, and they wouldn't harm anybody else. They just had different beliefs than we did. But when I would watch the news when I was a kid, I don't know, I hope I'm saying his name right. I don't know if I'm saying his name right. I apologize if I'm not. But back then, the leader was, because I remember certain leaders that, and I'm just popping off names. I'm just popping off the names that I remember watching as I was growing up. Anwar Sadat was one of them. I remember when he got assassinated. I remember seeing that on television. And I thought that he was one of the nicest. He seemed like a very nice man. And I couldn't understand. But see, again, I didn't live in that country where he was from. I didn't know what political things he had done that people didn't like, but they assassinated him. And I remember when that happened. Let me see. Yitzhak, I hope I'm saying it right. Yitzhak Rabin. I remember he was the Jewish leader. They assassinated him. Now, what I found out about him from my mom was that he was assassinated because he was doing too many things that people in Israel didn't like. Because, Israel's lineage that's biblical. Their lineage is biblical. All of our lineage is biblical, but Israel is God's chosen people. So you can literally trace their lineage from the Bible, okay? And so God had given them that land, and from what they were saying was that people in Israel was not happy that Yitzhak Rabin was making all of these peace talks and treaty agreements with the enemy, which they felt was the Palestinians. I'm not going to get all off into that, but I remember that was a huge thing when I started paying attention to politics, the fighting between Israel and the Palestinians and the fighting over land. And to think that I'm in my 50s and that stuff is still going on over there. They still fighting over that land. They still fighting over it. Now, I could show you in the Bible where God said that was going to happen, that fighting was going to happen, but I won't get into that. That's a long story, and I'm not going to even go there. But God did give us a heads up that was going to happen. So I'm not surprised by it, but I remember seeing that. But the one person in the Muslim community that I remember that our government kind of tried to indoctrinate the American people into believing that these people were evil was and I want to say it right, I think it's the Ayatollah Khomeini. I think that was his name. If I said it wrong, I'm sorry. But I remember every picture, every time they talked about that man, they would show a picture of him and he would look so mean and evil in those pictures. He looked like he could pick up a gun and just blast someone just by the way his face looked. And I, as a child, I at the time when all of that was going on, I was going from puberty to my teens. And so I'm looking at all this stuff, and every image I saw of him, you never saw him smiling. You never saw a picture of him looking friendly. He always looked mean and always looked like he was mad and like he wanted to hurt someone. And they was kind of, without saying it, they was kind of putting that message out there about Muslims, basically saying we can't trust them. They're mean, they're this, they're that. And every time he would say something that he didn't agree with America about, then there went up that picture. Or they would show him saying a speech and you would hear the interpretation. Now, I'm not saying that the interpretation was incorrect. I'm not saying that because I don't speak their language, so I don't know. But I'm just saying our government did play a role in a way of making us think they were a certain way. And I remember being a kid and I automatically thought, well, now, wait a minute. The Muslims that I see, they're not like this. They're nice to my mom. They're nice to me. They laugh, they smile, they make jokes. But every time I'm looking at this TV and they talk about this Ayatollah Khomeini, they making out like he's just this horrible. And I started changing the way I viewed Muslims based on what I was seeing, because they were constantly showing that man's face, constantly showing the fighting that was going on between Israel and the Palestinians. And anytime we had a disagreement with Iran or Iraq, they was constantly and like I said, if it was easy to get me to start rethinking about what I thought, just imagine what it's doing to kids nowadays when they put stuff up there. If you see something often enough, you start to believe it. Michael Jackson said that one time, and I never will forget when I heard him say that. I thought Michael was being, just trying to cover himself. But no, he had a point. If you show something to somebody over and over and over and over and over again, and you keep telling them it's the truth, how long will it be before they go, well, you may have a point there? I'm just saying. I saw how I started to change the way I was thinking, and the constant reintroduction to the friends that my mother made with the Muslim community that she was friends with reiterated that, okay, that's propaganda. Or you may have a Muslim that does not like Americans, but that's not every Muslim person. That's not every. The heck was that? I just saw something flying outside my patio door, and it flew up and then it flew back down, and it didn't look like a bird. So I was sitting up there trying to figure out what the heck is that. But anyway, as I was saying, it took me still meeting with my mother's friends and them coming over to the house and talking with us about their country and how they live and stuff. And it just made me stop, taking what the media showed me and just saying, okay, that's what they're like. I had to start looking at the media and say, okay, that's one person, that's one incident. That does not mean that every Muslim is like that. But it took me being exposed to something else for me to do that. If I had just been looking at the TV all the time, and then if I was living in a home where I was hearing people affirm what the TV was telling me, then there's no way in the world I would have been able to accept Muslims. There's no way in the world I would have been able to look at them and see them for who they were and not what people were telling me. You see what I'm saying? So if I can see how easily it was being done to me back then, and that was back during the late 70s and early 80s, we are now in 2022. You cannot, it's the same thing. And kids have the same mentality. Believe it or not, kids don't change. They don't change. They're the same. And what I mean by that is the innocence of a child is the innocence of a child. But that innocence can be easily persuaded to go either way based on what their environment feeds them. When I say indoctrination, it's the environment. If you're going to school and your school is telling you this, and then you come home and your parents is telling you this, and then you look on the TV and the TV and your government is telling you this, how long do you think it's going to be before you say, okay, that's the way it is? Because everything in your environment says so. You see what I'm saying? I seen how it happened because it happened to me. Now, I did the typical things, I watched the news, but I still lived my life as a young person. When I turned 18 and I was able to, vote for the first time, I remember that's when I really said, I don't want to be stupid about this. I had talked to myself. I said, I don't want to be stupid about this. When I start to cast my vote, I want to make sure that I know who I'm casting my vote for. I want to know what they stand for. I want to know what they're saying. I don't want to just go to the booth and just go just because I get a chance to go. I want to know who I'm for. So I really started paying attention when I turned 18. And I remember voting for the first time to know at that time that I was putting my opinion into the political realm. That for so long, my mother was doing that. And I trusted my mom. Don't get me wrong. I don't believe she ever spoke for me in a wrong way. I believe she stood for everything that I stood for. But I finally had a chance to put my voice out there. And that was something that I treasured. And I voted every year. Every 4 years, my vote was out there. And every primary, my vote was out there. Now, the primaries I found were a little harder than the presidential elections. And the reason why I say that is because for the primaries, you really had to dig to know who you were voting for. See, when in the presidential election, it wasn't that hard because the media, you could look up who you wanted to find out about. And the media would definitely let you know a lot about who was running. You see what I'm saying? But the primaries were a little different because you had Senate, you had Congress, you had mayors, you had governors, and you some of them you may know, some of you may not know. Then you also had local, you had your lawyers, your district attorneys, you had what are they called? Treasuries, secretary of treasuries, all these different low-level political systems. You had to vote for them too. And those were hard because you may not have knew who was running for your police chief or your police captain. You may not have known who was running for the school board. You may not have known all of these things, but when you voted in the primaries, these were things that you needed to know. So I admit probably the first 2 years that I voted in the primaries, I kind of asked my mother who was she voting for because I didn't really know a lot about the low level people. And when I say low level, I don't literally mean low level like it didn't mean anything. I'm just saying it wasn't a presidential spot. So it was a lot of different people competing for these other positions in political arena, and I didn't know them. So I kind of went to my mom, like, who you voting for? Who you voting for? And she would tell me, and I would just go and put what she put. But then I looked at that and I said, I can't continue to do that. I need to take the time to know who these people are. And if I don't know them, I don't vote for them. I don't vote for someone I don't know. And I found that after those first 2 years, when I kind of just followed what my mom did, after that, I started really trying to find out who the people in the primaries were. What did they stand for? What did they do? And I know this is going to shock y'all because, my mother knew I was doing it and she thoroughly understood, but it'll probably shock y'all. There were a few times that I voted for a Republican because I didn't know who the Democrat was, but I knew who the Republican was. And the Republican was actually talking with a little bit more sense than the Democrat was. And because I didn't know who the Democrat was and I didn't really know what they stood for, I just could not put my vote behind them. I only did that like 3 times, but I did do that. Sorry. I say sorry, but I'm not sorry. So it's sorry, not sorry. I got to do what I feel is best for me. Because when I feel like when I vote and I put my name behind someone, I'm basically saying that this person represents what I want done, what I want to see done in this country. If I don't know what you do, then I can't put my name behind you. And if I know what you do and what you do goes against everything that I stand for, I can't go for you. I don't care what political party you in, I can't go for you. Which brings me to how I got duped. Now, throughout my life, I had voted. Like I told you, I voted every year in the primaries and in the presidential elections. Now, when I say this, I'm not being mean, but you have to admit when I mention the name and who it's connected to, you'll understand why I call him this. But after George W. Bush, aka Furby, because that's what he looked like, the Furby toy. If y'all ever seen what the Furby toy was, just look at the Furby and then look at George W. Bush and you know I'm right. They look so much alike. But anyway, after George W. Bush's term and after weapons of mass destruction that we all fell for and found out that it was not necessarily what he stated, I am under the true conviction that George W. Bush's killing of Saddam Hussein had more to do with proving something to his father. Because his father was the one that was supposed to kill Saddam Hussein. And for some reason, I think that's why Schwarzkopf, if that's his name, General Schwarzkopf, I think that's his name. Maybe saying it wrong, but y'all know who I'm talking about. But I think that's why he got upset, because he knew we could have got him then, and our president said no. HW, which I call Daddy Bush, didn't do it. And so when son Bush got up in there, Furby decided, I'm going to do what Daddy didn't do. I'm going to get him. And then he had 9/11 as his backbone to do it. Because everybody was upset that we didn't get Saddam Hussein. But then when 9/11 happened, America was angry. We were hurt. We were devastated, but we was also angry. Because it was like, had you got rid of that dude when you had the chance, this probably never would have happened. But of course, we found out down the road that there was a whole nother person on deck that caused that. But to this day, we still don't know whether Saddam Hussein had his hands up in there. We don't know whether he had some dibbling dabbling to do with that. We don't know. We'll never know. But I feel like when Furby was able to kill Saddam Hussein, I feel like that was to prove something to his father. Because we found out down the road that him and his daddy had some issues. And that probably out of all of his children, Daddy Bush probably thought that Furby would never be president. Because I heard Jeb was the one that he wanted in that position. But Jeb didn't run. So then Furby ran. So I really believe there was a personal thing that went on with that. But look how many people died. Look how many American soldiers lost their life because you're trying to prove something to your dad. See, to me, if you're going to fight for us, okay, fight for us. But don't use us to try to prove something to your father. And that's what I think that was all about. The Iraqi freedom and all. That's what all of that was about. I truly believe that. So after his term, I think all of us was fed up. American people were fed up. We were tired of the lies and the shenanigans. We was just tired of it all. And we was looking for someone to fix our government. We had been lied to. We'd been tricked. We'd been told things that wasn't necessarily true. I mean, we was caught up in family, political drama, all balled up into one. So we was looking for somebody to say, hey, I'm going to come in and I'm going to turn this thing around. Now, enter Barack Obama. Now, from what I'm going to say from this point on, I recognize that some people might not like it, but it's what I'm going to say. And it's my journey with Barack Obama. I ain't talking about anybody else's journey. Everybody has a journey. If they voted for Barack Obama or whether they didn't, everybody has their own journey with him. This is my journey. So you can't speak on my journey. Okay? So with that being said, when Barack Obama was listed as a candidate who was going to run for president, I have to admit that I was very proud because we had been down the road with two others that tried to run for president, and they were of African American descent, and that was Al Sharpton and Jesse Jackson, which both of them, they got in the ring, but wasn't even in there long enough to throw their first punch before they got KO'd. So our hopes of having a black president died with the both of them. And so we were seriously thinking, we just never going to get an opportunity to have our own up in there. They just never going to let us do that. But after Furby's debacle, I think everybody was at the point where we was just like, something got to change. We can't keep going like this. So when Barack Obama ran, me and my mom, we listened to him. I mean, we really listened to him. And for one, we liked his charisma. He had a lot of charisma, still does. Very charismatic guy. And he had a funny side. He had a witty side. He knew how to not only be political, but also to act as if he was one of you, make you feel comfortable, but he made promises. He actually talked about what he wanted to do for this country, the changes that he wanted to bring about. Remember, his thing was, yes, we can. That was his campaign slogan. Yes, we can. Change. Yes, we can. And because we were in so need of a change, we were so tired of the same old debauchery that we was just like, yes, change. Yes, we can. Yes, we can. And I remember, like I said, I voted every year. Every 4 years in the presidentials, every time there was primaries, we were voting. My mother and I were very involved in the political process. But when Barack Obama, ran, me and my mom went above and beyond what we had done before. We wanted to make sure that this dude didn't get shafted. We wanted to make sure, okay, we watched two come in there, two that we really, because my mama didn't like Al Sharpton. I'm just going to be honest with you. Jesse Jackson, we both like Jesse Jackson, but I didn't mind Al Sharpton. I just felt like sometimes he was like the Black Donald Trump. Just sometimes he would say stuff that would get him in trouble. And I kind of didn't like that about him, but I didn't mind him. My mother did not like Al Sharpton, but she knew more about him because she lived, to see him come up as he came up. I didn't live to see him come up. He was already a grown man by the time I was born. So she knew more about him than me. So I understand that why she didn't like him. But we watched both of them crash and burn. So we wanted to make sure that we did something to try to help this black man not get shafted. Let's see if he can really win this thing. And the way he was promising things, we thought, oh, wow, finally we're going to get somebody in there that not only looks like us, but also can be a voice for us. Because we always felt like in the political arena that we really didn't have anybody really in there that could speak on our behalf. We always felt like we had to just tolerate whatever happened because we only had white representatives and only a few sprinkled peppered people in there every now and then, a few black people sprinkled in there. We wanted somebody who could really speak on our behalf, and say, hey, this is what the black people want too, Well, me and my mom, like I said, we went above and beyond. And what I mean by that was, for the first time, my mom and I, we had the Obama-Biden banner. We purchased a banner and we purchased a sign for our yard. So we was living in our house. We had the Vote for Biden banner up and we had the sign in our yard, Obama, Biden. We had the sticker on our car. And for the first time ever in history, my mom and I attended a political presidential caucus. We had never been to a caucus, never. Even if we really liked the president that we were voting for, we never went to a caucus. But we wanted to help make sure this black man gets in. And somehow we convinced ourselves that our presence that hadn't been felt in any other caucus, that we felt like if we get out here and we show up and we let him know and let the political arena know that we stand for Obama, then we doing a good thing. And my mama, with her oxygen tank, we rolled up to the caucus and we was there for 2 hours. I never seen so many black people in my life. Black people were everywhere. That caucus was packed. And I mean, there were white people there too, but not a lot. But there were some white people there. But I had never seen so many black people in one place in my life. And I remember all of us, we were chanting. And I look back on that. And even though, I will fill in later how things changed, I will say that moment that I shared with all those people in that room, I will always cherish that because that was the first time that I ever seen black people of all walks of life. I mean, I saw Christians, non-Christians, old people, young people, middle-aged people, black, white. There was even a few Hispanics that were in there. Black people that had money, black people that was poor as heck, educated, uneducated. I mean, all kinds of people were there. All kinds. And we all were in solidarity at that moment. All of us, we were chanting, Obama. Who do we want? Obama. Who do we need? Obama. Obama. I mean, I had never been a part of anything like that before in my life. And my mother said the only time that she remembered being with black people on the same level like that was when they marched with Dr. King. When they rioted, when they killed Dr. King, and when she marched. She said she didn't get to march in Washington, but that in the Midwest, they did hold marching rallies when he marched on Washington. And my mom said she was pregnant with me and she was out there marching. So she said that was the only other time that she felt that same solidarity with Black people was when she marched, for Dr. King. And so for her, she was getting a double dose. For me, that was my first dose because I had never been a part of anything like that. And even though my hopes got dashed down the road, I will always cherish that moment because all of us saw something happening in history that we thought we would never see. And I can't take away from that. Despite the things that happened later, I can't take away from the fact that that was a very historical moment that I was a part of. And I'm grateful to God for allowing me to be a part of it. Now, I know my video is getting kind of long, but this is important. So I'm going to keep going. All right. So we went and we cast our vote for Barack Obama. And when he won, me and my mom, we were so happy. I mean, to know that we were a part of that. It wasn't just something that we was watching take place. You know what I'm saying? But we knew that we had campaigned. We knew that we had went to the caucus and had ourselves counted by society as a supporter of Obama. And then to actually watch him win, that was just absolutely a phenomenal moment. I can't take from that. I can't take away from that. The only thing I will say is that I learned a huge lesson from that, even though I cherish it and I was grateful to be a part of the nostalgia. I learned a huge lesson that what we did was a mistake. It was something that God had to allow us to see that you should never do when you're in the political arena. Now, if he was running for a beauty contest or if he was going for a I'm so sexy contest or something like that where they voting on his looks or whatever, okay. Doing that for that purpose, great. But to vote for someone for the biggest reason is because of their racial makeup and because you never had that opportunity, you put your vote behind somebody because of that. That is one of the biggest major mistakes that you could ever make in the political arena. But God had to allow me and my mother to see that because we couldn't see that at that time. And I think a lot of Black people didn't see that at that time. And some Black people still don't see it. No matter what, to them, Obama was one of the best presidents ever. And I'm not going to take away from that. If that's how they see him, that's how they see him. I'm speaking about my journey. After he won, I began really watching to see what he did from that point on. And although I liked the guy as a person, very charismatic, couldn't have asked for a more charismatic political leader. He's not really my type, physically, but, he wasn't a bad looking guy. So, it wasn't like we were staring, anytime he came on TV, it wasn't like you were staring at an ugly face. He was an okay looking guy. And he had strong family ties with, and I still like Michelle Obama. I still think she's a cool chick. And so, strong Black woman. So, I honored the fact that he loved her and supported her and whatever she wanted to do. And he had 2 beautiful daughters, Despite all that, as a political leader, he was a total disappointment to me. A lot of what he promised, he did not do. And We had seen that scenario with all the other presidents, and I fell for the okey doke. I fell for the political scheme that all politicians do when they want to get voted for. They will say anything that you want to hear in order to get in there. But when they get in there, they're going to do what the government wants them to do. Because a president, all he is a political figurehead. That's all he is. We all know that the Senate and the Congress are the power. And so all he does is enforce what they want. You know, his job is to convince you to do what the Senate and the Congress wants done. That's what this is all about. But at the time, you couldn't see that because, or at least I couldn't, because I was looking at the fact that we got a black president in there. And finally, we're going to have somebody speak on our behalf. And finally, we're going to get somebody to get some things done. Didn't work that way. All of the things that he promised, he didn't do. And one of the biggest things that he promised that he was going to do, and I realized that even if he had been, he wasn't the type that was going to do it. But even if he had been, when I realized who the real power was, I knew that even if he wanted to do it, it wasn't going to get done. And that was bringing jobs back to America instead of China. He made that promise that he was going to bring more jobs back here to America, and he was going to kind of cut down a lot of the imports and exports with China. I should have known that that was never going to happen, but I believed him when he said he was going to do it. And then when we seen that he did what every president before him did, caved and made us a slave to China, not necessarily our own independent nation that stands on our own and makes our own stuff. But no, we just kept being indebted and enslaved to China. So now, if we run out of baby formula that's made in China, our shelves are empty. You know, if we need toilet paper, if we need all these other products, clothing and electronics and all that, because we have so many things made in another country. If that country decides, I'm not giving you anything anymore from here on out, our country's duped. We're stumped. We don't know what to do. And that's what caused the panic when the pandemic happened, because Trump stopped everything with China. And that's when we seen how much we really depended on China, how much they could control us, because when they stopped sending stuff in, and I know China was like this, okay, I ain't going to bring it in, but let's see how long you go before you start begging for us to get it back on track. And sure enough, even with Trump in there, he had to kowtow, step and fetch with China to get the products back. Because when they cut the products off, our shelves were empty and people started complaining, and we don't have this, we don't have that. So what did Congress and Senate made Trump do? You better kowtow, step and fetch, and do your little dance. Make China happy so that they get the stuff back. Obama, unfortunately, there were cracks in our political system that the first time I saw the cracks, because up until Barack Obama was found wedged within those cracks, the first president that really let me see that, oh, okay, our government is really messed up was Bill Clinton. And the reason why I say Bill Clinton was the first president that I saw. Now, my mother saw Nixon, and my mother saw, all the other presidents that, had caused problems. But you better get to stepping and get on. Sorry. Somebody was looking in my apartment at me. And I'm like, you need to keep it moving. But anyway, my mother saw it with the other presidents, but the first president that I saw that was doing some dirt was Bill Clinton. Now, I knew about Reaganomics, and I had heard about, some of the things that people didn't like with Jimmy Carter and with Daddy Bush. But Bill Clinton was the first one that allowed me to see the cracks in our government. Because up until then, the cracks of the government were kind of well hidden. But see, Bill Clinton was the first one that I saw that was doing dirt in his personal life. And he was so busy trying to cover up the dirt in his personal life that he allowed us to see the cracks in our government. And so when the time came for Barack Obama to step in there, I'm thinking, okay, we got somebody in here who's going to fix those cracks. Someone's going to come in there and change these cracks. Nope. Barack Obama wound up wedging himself within those cracks. So he became part of the problem instead of fixing the problem. And I was so disappointed in his presidential term of 4 years that when he came up for nomination for the second term, I didn't vote for him, and neither did my mom. I voted for independent. I don't know who my mother voted for, but she did not vote for Barack either. We both were extremely disappointed, and it was really messed up because I liked him as a person, and I had so much high hopes in what he promised that he was going to do. But I found out he was just like the rest of them. And now I am convinced that it does not matter, because Bill Clinton allowed us to see the cracks of our system. Because he was so busy covering himself, we was able to look at, oh, okay, there's really no true difference between the Democrats and the Republicans when it comes to corruption. Both sides are corrupt. Clinton, him trying to keep his personal life in control, caused us to be able to see the faults of the government because he wasn't in the way of that. You see what I'm saying? If he had kept his house intact, then he would have been doing a good job of trying to keep us from seeing what our government was doing, what our government could have been doing. And so the cracks were shown. Barack Obama didn't fix them. And we have yet to have a president in there that is fixing those problems. Donald Trump, unfortunately, couldn't fix them. And I wouldn't trust him to do it anyway, because Donald Trump was an egotistical political leader. He was very ego-oriented. I did not like Donald Trump because his mouth got him into trouble more than anything else. If he had just shut up. See, I'm like this. If you claim to be the best president, then your work should speak for itself, not your mouth. Because at the end of the day, that's what we're looking at. We're looking at what you do, not what you say. And Donald Trump had been caught in too many lies. He would say one thing, do another, which that's no different than the other presidents. But at least the other presidents would at least try to cover their lie. They would at least try to give you an excuse for, Donald Trump was, I didn't say that. And they would play the clip of him saying the actual word. And then you go say you didn't say that. I didn't say that. So Donald Trump was he was very egotistical. I didn't like him. And now we have Biden in there. Don't really care for him either. Because at the end of the day, I truly believe that Obama is in his ear. And I know a lot of y'all are going, what's she mean? In his ear. In his ear. In his ear. Case in point. I'm just going to prove 2 points and then I'm out of here. When Joe Biden made the announcement that he was going to appoint a black woman, that he was only going to consider a black woman for the Supreme Court justice seat, First of all, that was a very racist thing to do, because had Donald Trump or any Republican had done the same thing, if Donald Trump had came on TV and said, I'm only going to consider a white man for the seat of the Supreme Court, y'all know black folk would have went off. Every Democrat in this country would have went off. Y'all know y'all would have. Because y'all would have seen that as a racist thing to do. You can't just consider somebody just on their race and say you only gonna do that. But when Biden did it, no one said anything. Everybody was okay with it. Racism is racism no matter what the race is. You can't just show favoritism to one race. That ain't right. That's not what this country stands for. At least that's not what it's supposed to stand for. But apparently when Biden did it, no one had a problem with it. And then when I heard the name Ketanji Brown Jackson, I looked her up. You know who confirmed her at everything that she did in her lawyer career? Barack Obama. And a lot of people didn't know that. A lot of people didn't know that. A lot of people didn't know that she was connected to Barack Obama before she got this position. So you know what I'm beginning to believe? I'm believing that long ago an agreement was made between Barack Obama and Ketanji Brown Jackson, basically saying that he would bring her with him if he ever got into a high level of leadership, of political power, that he would always protect her and give her what she wants. If she pushed forward what he wants or what the government wants, if she's willing to play along, he will help support her. Then we look when Jen Psaki left her position and they put this Jean-Pierre woman. Now, granted, I'm happy that we got a black woman on the Supreme Court, and I'm happy that we got a black woman who's a press secretary. I'm from the generation that these are the firsts for us. We never had anybody black that was up there, speaking on behalf of the president, and we never had a black female Supreme Court judge. So while I'm happy about the firsts, I've learned from Barack Obama's debacle that I can't just follow you because you black. I got to look at who you are and what you stand for. What have you done? And what are you promising that you're going to do? Is it going to better things or make things worse? That Jean-Pierre woman, you know who she served under when he was president? Barack Obama. So you have to ask yourself, did Joe Biden pick these people, or were they already pre-picked and promised their positions if the positions ever became available, that they would bring these people along and put them in the positions? Hey, agreements and friendships and deals and contracts are made every day. And I don't put it past these people to make promises to these other people that, hey, if I ever get to be president, if I ever get to be in this position, I promise I'll look out for you. But you got to push forward what I want to push forward. And let's face it, if you agree with what he wants to push forward, you ain't going to say no. You're going to be like, oh, man, he going to hook me up. And all I got to do is do what we want. All I got to do is make sure that what we want gets done. But he going to hook me up if he ever get there. Oh, okay. I'll wait. I'll be patient. And I believe that's what Ketanji, and I believe that's what this Jean-Pierre, I believe that's what they all did. They waited patiently till it was their turn. That's kind of where we live in, y'all. But I have to say, Barack Obama, my vote for him was the first time and the last time that I was politically duped. Unfortunately, because of my disappointment and the lessons that I learned with Barack Obama, when the Like I said, I didn't vote for him in his second term. I voted for someone else. When Donald Trump ran against Hillary Clinton, that was the first time in my whole history of voting since I was 18. That was the first time that I didn't vote at all. And then when Biden ran against Trump, I didn't vote in that either, because I can't put my vote behind someone that I don't trust and that I don't believe in. And I've learned that when you put your name behind someone, you are validating everything they do from that day forward, because you put your name on them. You put your name as saying, I trust them to do what I want done. I can't do that if I don't trust you. If I can't trust you, I'm not putting my name behind you. So, believe it or not, when Donald Trump became president, I slept like a baby, because everything that everybody complained about with what he was doing, hey, guess what? I didn't put my name behind him, so you can't point fingers at me. And I was not fond of Hillary either, because I knew that her relationship with Bill Clinton was a contractual agreement. What kind of woman decides to run for president after her husband been one? That to me seems like both of them came together and said, okay, this is what we're going to do. If I become president, you support me. No matter what happens, you stand behind me, and I will put that behind you and help you run. I believe the two of them had that agreement, that she would help him become president, and in turn, he would turn around and help her. Now, some people would say, oh, well, that's a good marital relationship. No, that's a business contract. Any woman who could know her man to slept with the woman on the governor's lawn, had oral sex with a woman in the Oval Office, and you still support him? Come on, that's a contractual agreement. No woman who truly loves her husband gonna put up with a man that does that in front of the entire world. It's one thing to do it with a woman and nobody knows but you and him. It's another thing to do it where the whole country knows what your man did. And you gonna get on TV, I support him. I support him. No, that's called, we got an agreement that no matter what he does, I support him, because he's going to support me when it's my turn. And ain't that what he did? Ain't that exactly what he did? So I couldn't put my vote behind her because I didn't trust her. And I didn't trust Trump. So that was the first time I never voted. So in 2 presidential elections, I did not vote. And if, in the next political arena, if I don't hear something new, if I don't hear something fresh, if I don't hear something godly, I ain't voting. And y'all can say whatever you want. I've heard this comment quite a bit, and I got my own response to that. And then I'm going to end this. I've heard people say, if you don't cast your vote, then you don't have the right to speak on anything in this country. Somebody done told you wrong. I don't know who you talking to. But I do believe my tax dollars support this country. Whether I cast a vote or not, my money is taken just like your money is taken. Therefore, I do have a say and will have a say. Because when Uncle Sam comes for me and takes my money, oh, I have an opinion. Because if I got to pay the piper, then I'm going to have a say about who the piper is and what the piper's doing with my money and how the piper runs this country. I'm going to say something. So don't you tell me that I can't say something about this country. Just because I don't go and put my John Hancock behind every little Tom, Dick, and Harry that runs. If you want to trust them, even though they have not lived up to a lot of what they promised, if you want to continue to put your name behind them, that's your choice. That's your freedom. That's your right. But it's also my right to say, I'm staying out of this. I don't trust it. And if I can't trust it, I can't put my name behind it. Now, that's me. That's how it is. And that's what I said. All right, y'all. I'm going to end it here. Hopefully things will get better in the political arena. I don't quite see it happening anytime soon, but hopefully it will. um, my my promotional pick for this week, I believe we're going to go with the 5 top unknowns. And I believe that's what it's called, 5 unknowns. And it's where this guy takes 5 topics or 5 stories, and he talks about them. It's either 5 disappearances, 5 FBI files, unsolved mysteries, just pretty much 5 anything, whatever 5 issues of topic that he wants to talk about, that's what he does. He's very thorough. He does a lot of good research, and he's got a lot of videos up there. You really can see a lot of them. 5 top unknowns. Either it's 5 top unknowns or 5 unknowns, but type both of them in and I'm pretty sure you'll run across it. Check out that channel. I have subscribed to it and it's a pretty decent channel. Also, if you look at my channel, you will see some of the channels that I subscribe to. So you'll be able to look at them and find them. If you can't type them in and find them yourself, you can find them in my subscription on my page. But I thank you guys for hanging out with me. And please, y'all, start really paying attention to what these politicians are saying and doing. Make sure that they represent what you want to see in this country, what you want to see done for your family, for you, and for this country. I'm a Christian, and honey, if they ain't representing God, I have to withdraw my hand. I got to take my hand off of it, because if you're not representing what I believe, then I know you're not going to get anything done. You know, you're going to push your agenda, and, you know, you can do that. That's a free country. You can do that, but you ain't going to get my vote. All right, y'all. Thank y'all for hanging out with me. All right. Be sure to check out my promotional pick as well. Y'all have a blessed day.
If you like my vibe, be sure to like, share, and subscribe. Till the next time, see ya.